Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our conversation today. And the topic is when everyone has the mic, our words are killing us. And the topic of just the power of words, the impact that words have on us has been on my mind because I'm finishing my memoir and because of what's happening in the world right now. And I really can't recall a time that I have felt more disheartened and kind of despondent about, what is happening in the world and the state of humanity. And I think a lot of us have had these feelings for the last several years, but it's reached a new level of despair for me anyway, and for a lot of people that I know. And it's not just, the horrific things that we're seeing. It's also the way that we are so divided and unable to have any kind of meaningful conversation about anything, important or heartbreaking or devastating on any level. Like that part becomes really, it's so incredibly exhausting and sad. And I know in my heart that the best thing that we get while we're here on earth is connection to other people. I'm sure of it. The thing that really is of the most value while we are here walking on this planet together, really it's the connections that we make to the people in our lives, and not just the closest people, but even people that we meet in passing throughout the day. I am sure you have this experience where maybe you're just like crossing the street and you make eye contact with someone, but there's like a very momentary, soul connection, whatever you want to call it. There's a real exchange there, a real, I am seeing you. I know I don't know you. I know absolutely nothing about your life or what you believe or who you are, where you come from, but I see you even in this split second interaction that we're having. At least this person has been seen for that instant in the day. It's meaningful. It matters. It restores your faith in humanity. When I drive in Los Angeles and someone lets me merge, it restores my faith in humanity. When I'm walking somewhere and my arms are full and someone holds open a door, it restores my faith in humanity. It makes me feel, confident that like we're all in this together, and there's some awareness of that. And I certainly do all those things. I let people merge. I hold doors open. I make sure if there's an opportunity to really connect with someone, I take it. And it doesn't mean I get it right all the time. We all have our days, and I want to be clear because I don't want anyone to feel like the level is unattainable for anyone. It isn't. I think sometimes these people that we revere, no matter who your favorite teachers are, who the people are in your life, Mr. Rogers would have called them the helpers, but who those people are for you that are inspiring, they're all human, and no one is going to get everything right every second of the day, and that's it. But I genuinely believe in my heart that when you are mostly, spreading love as you're moving through your days. And the days, each day, right? If you can string together a bunch of good days, that's your life that's happening. Your life is not happening 5 years from now, when things calm down or when you retire, or like your life is happening right now, this instant. This is it. And, and that is why I really do think there's a lot of power in focusing on the day instead of, future tripping, right? Like projecting way out ahead of ourselves. That's why I've never really been, I'm a fan of living intentionally, certainly, and knowing what it is that you're trying to create. But I'm not such a fan of like, where do you think you're going to be in 5 years? Because we don't know. But it's okay to think about it and hope that like whatever you're doing today is moving you in that direction, of course. But I really do think that if you want to feel grounded and feel reassured, you're better off, and especially right now, focusing on what can I do today to create more peace, more compassion, more love, more calm, more tolerance, more acceptance, around me, more compassionate communication. And because words are the currency that we use when we're communicating, I really became focused this week on the impact of the words that we are using and the words that we're reading. When we're on the receiving end of someone else's words, whether they're being spoken to us or we're watching a video or we're reading comments under a post, in whatever ways the information is coming to us, it's usually coming in the form of words. And in yoga, we have this idea of pratyahara, and prati means away from and ahara means food. But it's not literal food, like it's not, food that you're eating. It's like, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to really consider what you're feeding yourself, what you're feeding your mind, what you're feeding your heart, what you're feeding your nervous system. And right now, there is so much rage. There's so much rage. And if you're a sensitive person, you really do have to watch yourself. I am not one, I will never stick my head in the sand. I feel a responsibility to bear witness, to be aware of what's happening. That is the job of, I'm one of the things that I do in my life and I've been doing for 30 plus years is I teach yoga, and I practice. And one of the jobs is to pay attention, right? To pay attention, whether you do yoga or you like yoga, it doesn't matter, but like just to be an aware human being on the face of the earth, you've got to be able to keep your eyes open and see what is happening and look at it truthfully. You can't deny or numb out or pretend things aren't happening, and that's part of like in the wellness world and in the spiritual community. Sometimes there really is this toxic positivity, stay positive. And I was talking about that a few weeks ago. There was a colleague of mine who sent a newsletter out and said, it's really like the world is so angry, stay positive. And it's like, that's not really it either. It's reasonable and sane, and it's appropriate if you are feeling outraged and heartbroken and despairing. Like all of those things make sense, and it means you're paying attention. Historians would say that things are actually getting better and we have fewer wars happening on the face of the earth right now than we ever have had in history. And that really the reason things are feeling so grim, and this is part of what I wrote about this week, is that we're seeing all these things happening in real time in a way we never have before. This is like a newer thing that has happened over the course of our ability to communicate with each other over the internet has some wonderful amazing, aspects to it. And certainly in my own life, I've been amazed and so grateful to have this ability to connect with people on the other side of the world. Part of what I do is I am a yoga teacher and I have a website, and there are 8,000 classes plus, on that site that have been filmed since 2010. But some of the greatest teachers in Los Angeles, and it's a joy to be able to share my own teachings and share all these other teachers who are my really good friends with the world. It's a great thing that I'm able to do because of the internet. And there are not, a million yoga studios on every corner in every city of the world, right? In the big cities, there's a lot of yoga, and some in the smaller cities and towns, and there are not. And so it's a joy to be able to connect with people this way. And I have made genuine connections with people that I've never met in person because of the internet, and I started blogging. We don't blog anymore. I started blogging in 2010 on Facebook, and that page grew and grew and grew. And all I was talking about is this kind of thing, is like, how do we live in a way that's going to feel meaningful and fulfilling? And how do we really connect with one another? And, how do we stay grounded when we're living in such a stressful way that is probably not ideal for human beings to be living in boxes and driving in boxes and going home and watching boxes and, looking at a rectangle in your hand? Like, I don't really think this is our ideal scenario, but this is the scenario we're in. And we don't have the village anymore. People say it takes a village. Well, we don't. Where's the village? Unless you're really lucky and you live close to your family and your family is the kind of family that you can lean on, or you have amazing friends who are willing to pitch in and help, there's no village anymore. So, that's part of, we have an online village, but like, if you're a single mom, I did the single mom thing for 8 years, like, it's not going to really help. Doesn't matter how many followers you have on Facebook or Instagram or, wherever. Like, if you actually need help in your daily life because you feel overwhelmed, that's not going to do it. So we've replaced real connection with, online connection, and it has its limits. It has its limitations. And so you've got to remind yourself, if you need to, that you also want to be cultivating those really important relationships in your life with people close by, so that there are people to lean on and people to talk to when you feel overwhelmed. I think we have a lot of people feeling really alienated and separated from one another. And I think the despair levels are really high because just normal things are so difficult. Just feeding your family is so hard right now. And, health insurance is out of control. It's broken here in the United States where I am. So many things are broken here. There's a lot of things that are not working the way they need to work in order for all people to have a safety net. We do not have that going on right now. So there are a lot of places for the concern to go. And if you are not genuinely having these soul to soul connections as you're going through the day, it can start to feel really dark and really overwhelming. And despair is an appropriate response. So there's that. There's just the world at large. There's a climate crisis. There's a lot of things that, if you start paying attention, which I'm sure you already are, you're aware of this stuff, and it's in your it's in your energy field. I don't know how else to. It's like that David Foster Wallace, and I know people have different feelings about him, and that's totally fine. But again, you say anything these days and it can be polarizing. But I will say there's that one, the fish, the young fish swimming in the water, and the old fish goes by and he says, hey fellas, how's the water? And the young fish swim on, and then one of the young fish turns to the other one and says, what's water? This idea that we're swimming in this stuff all the time, whether you try to avoid certain aspects of it or not, you're still swimming in it. There is a world grief. Somebody wrote a beautiful piece this week, and there's a word for it that I do not remember now, but there's something like world grief, where you're just grieving for the world at large, because it I don't know. It's like we're, as human beings, maybe historically speaking, things are getting better, but the information coming at us all the time does not suggest that. So perhaps if we always had a live feed from the beginning of time to now, and we could go back 100 years and look at what the live feed was then, we would say, oh yeah, wow, look at that. There's a lot less, we're doing a lot better, but it doesn't feel that way. And it doesn't seem that way. That is not the lived experience most of us are having. And so, I do think there are a lot of people really hurting right now and feeling powerless. I don't know, like, just for me personally, I don't know how many mass shootings we're going to have in this country before something is done. That it's just there's just right off the top of my head, one of the most, I don't even know what to say anymore, about how powerless I feel in the face of this, and how enraging it is to have children at school and feel like I don't know if they're going to be safe from day to day. That's an insane world that we've created. It's insane. It does not make any sense. It goes against everything you would feel as a parent that you would want for your child. You cannot even feel like they are safe at school anymore. That does not exist anymore. That's not a normal reality to be living with. And that's just right off the top of my head. I don't even have to think about it. So, if you're struggling, that's really, really understandable. Then we have, people screaming at each other on the internet 24/7. So no matter what topic you're talking about, whether, it's, same-sex marriage, which really, are we still talking about this? Like, is this really still a conversation that we need to be having? It's 2023. I let people love who they love. Marriage, it's a huge commitment. If two people want to make that commitment, why are you bothered? Like, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't impact you. It doesn't impact your kids. Like, you really have nothing to worry about. I'm just going to just say some things today because I've sort of like at my max here of watching what's happening. And, I have the platform that I have, and I'm going to say what I think about some things. And any topic, you say anything, my heart hurts for what I am seeing, and you're going to get attacked because that's the environment that we're in. That in itself is exhausting and disheartening and depressing in ways it is hard to put into words. The idea that you may not express your grief, your horror, your immense sadness, because people are dying, that you are going to say, I'm so sad for all the innocent people caught up in this mess, on both sides. You say that, you're attacked by both sides. It's like madness. And it is not the right idea, and it is not going to help us change things. It's not going to help anyone who's suffering. All it does is exhaust the people who care the most. The people who really do want to figure out what any action they can possibly take to help. It's like, wow, okay, this is not a safe place to express that. So, it doesn't matter how well reasoned people are. I have read some things this week that were really like in depth, well thought out, this is horrifying. and this thing over here is also horrifying. These two horrifying things can exist at once, and I can feel terrible about both of them. And I am expressing that. Nope. Attack, attack, attack. It's, I don't know what what anyone thinks attacking is going to do, but it certainly isn't going to help the situation. It's just going to make everyone feel more scared, more anxious, more depressed, more hopeless, powerless, So I don't know. We've created this thing, social media, the internet, and like any other tool, you got to be mindful about how you're using it. And I was thinking about words a lot this week, and I am finishing my memoir, which I've been working on for quite a while. And that's part of the reason that I've been thinking about the impact of words and the power of words. There are certain things that, I've been writing in the personal essays each week, and they are really personal. And there are certain things that I'm, going even further in the memoir and covering different material. I've been pretty careful in the personal essays not to replicate what I'm writing about in the memoir. So, I'm my feeling is I want to write from my heart, and then if I need to go back, like that's part of it, editing, right? Like writing is rewriting. So just getting that first draft out. But I'm the kind of writer that even as I'm writing that first draft, I'm trying to find the exact right words. And as I was thinking about that, I was also thinking about the impact of the most painful things that I've ever heard, spoken to me in my life, and how easy it is to remember them. Really easy to remember the most just heartbreaking, cruel things anyone has ever said. And I don't want you to do that exercise. I don't want you to stop and think to yourself, is that true for me too? Because I don't want you to sit here and think about the most awful things anyone's ever said to you. But I imagine if you did stop and think about it, it wouldn't be hard to remember. And the reason that it isn't hard to remember is because they hurt. Like these words they hurt. And it's not just the impact they have in the moment. It's, certain things can't be unsaid. And you may know people who go for the jugular. That has never been I do not possess that instinct. I possess the opposite instinct. No matter how upset I might be with someone or how much I might feel deeply hurt by someone, I just would never even in the worst moments of feeling attacked myself, I would never go for someone's jugular because because I know what it feels like. It's the most awful feeling in the world when someone you have trusted and opened up to betrays your trust in the worst possible way and uses the things that you have shared against you in an already painful moment. That is, like, to me, that is way over the line. And I have had people like that in my life. I do not have people like that in my life anymore, and I never would again. That is not something I would or will tolerate at this point in my life. But when I was younger, I absolutely did tolerate it, and I didn't just tolerate it. I think there was some part of me, like, it felt familiar. And I very sadly, and it's not easy for me to write about some of these things with my mother because I first of all, I miss her. I just instantly start crying. I miss her every day. And I really loved her, and I still love her. It doesn't end. Your love for someone does not end with death, which is, I think, comforting. And your relationship with that person doesn't end either, which I didn't. It took me about a year to understand that, and I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but
The first year after my mother passed, the grief was so overwhelming. That's really all I could feel. I was trying to keep my head above water. And right around the year mark, I started to feel her presence with me all the time. So I think the reason that her words hurt me so deeply throughout my life is because I loved her so much. And that is certainly the case, that people that you love the most, that you are the most vulnerable with, those are the people who can hurt you the most. They know where your soft spots are, they know your deepest fears, your deepest disappointments, your worst heartbreaks, your, you know, times you've felt shamed or betrayed. Presumably the closest people in your life are going to know about those things. And sometimes the closest people in your life have contributed to those feelings that you have been the betrayers or have been the perpetrators of, violence, or like, everybody, we got different things going on for different human beings. So, my mother, for whatever, reason, and I do think I do think that my theory about just her subconscious blame, I really think she blamed me for the end of her marriage to my dad. And I think there was some part of her that just, you know, I just, when she would get angry, she'd just lash out at me, and in that sort of awful way, really hurtful, go for the jugular kind of way. And so I wrote about that, and it's not easy to write about. I don't like to think about that, and I don't want to present her in that light. It's not comfortable for me or fun for me. There were so many great qualities about her too, but the rage and the alcoholism were, you know, um, they were the waters that you had to swim in if you wanted to love her. And it was hard, it was hard. And and so I wrote about that. And those words, if I think back on, and that was not the only example, unfortunately, there are many. And what happened over time is I learned not to confide in her if I was heartbroken. It took me a while, and there were times I would slip. Like I knew at that, right then, at that age where I was 20, 21, about to be 21, I knew it was not smart to confide in her, because I knew the next time she became angry or frustrated or she was drinking, I knew those things would be used against me. Like, I knew it by then. But it's still your mom. It's your mom. And so when things go wrong, you want to tell your mom. You want to be able to share that stuff and say, I'm so disappointed right now, or I'm so scared, or I'm so confused. You want to. And she was smart. Like, it was really unfortunate, because she could be great to talk to, but then like it the pain of having that stuff used against you later was not worth the comfort, if there was going to be any, of a conversation. And so I learned not to confide in her. And that's what happens with people who, can't control their emotions, who do go for the jugular, who become upset and cannot self-regulate enough to not say that thing, not use that information in the moment, not decide, I want to win this fight more than I want to remember that I love this person. There are people who really do struggle with this, and it has such a huge impact on whether, the quality of the relationship you're able to have. No sensitive person is going to set themselves up for that. And I shouldn't say no sensitive person. No sensitive person who has worked hard to nurture their own well-being is going to set themselves up for that. It took me so much work to unravel a lot of things I believed about myself coming out of my childhood, and to rewire my system, and stop carrying around old stories about how I was broken or unlovable. It took so much work for me to shift my inner dialogue. And that, again, we're back to words. The way that you are speaking to yourself inside your own head is really something to look at. If you are unkind to yourself, if the way that you're speaking to yourself is harsh and unforgiving and shaming, like, that is absolutely the place to start. That's where I started. I just realized at a certain point, if I want to live peacefully inside myself, if I don't want to be at war within myself, then I have to start with the quality of my inner dialogue, which was just so, so painful. And it took years. It was not, it's not like an overnight thing where you bring this stuff into your awareness and you're like, oh, okay, I see I'm doing that, so I'm going to spend a couple weeks and really try to shift that. No, if it took years to set up, it's going to take, significant time to shift. But what could be a more worthwhile use of your time and energy than shifting that? And this is part of what I was, writing about, is whatever we are filled with is what we're going to spread. And clearly, there are a lot of people filled with rage, a lot, who are at war within themselves, who are speaking to themselves in a way that lacks compassion and kindness and patience. And that is what is being turned outward when they get upset. I hope I got that across in the essay, because that is really my whole point, is whatever's happening inside of you is what you are going to spread. And I don't think it's ever been clearer to me than it has been the last few weeks. There are a lot of people at war within themselves who are just so ready to lash out, and use their words like weapons. It's really heartbreaking and exhausting and, depressing. It really is. And it's not the way. It is absolutely not going to help us somehow get on the same team, even if we don't agree about everything. I was saying that it's like the way things are right now, an event happens or a topic comes up and instantly people are on one side or the other. It's like they're picking teams like they're at a sporting event, and it's not a sporting event. The world is on fire. Everybody needs to get on the same team and grab a hose. That's what needs to happen right now. So, if you're at war within yourself, at least that's something you can start working on today. What we can do to fix all the multiple unbelievable problems we have to face in this world. I mean, one small act of kindness at a time is really, whatever the things are that you feel, put some action behind them. If you see something in the world and you think that is not it, that is not okay. I can't know that that's happening and do nothing. Great, do something. I don't know what that something is. Make a donation, volunteer your time, speak to your close friends offline. Those are things. But screaming at people on the internet is not going to help anyone, and it's not going to create more peace in this world, which desperately needs more peace. So those are some outward things, right? When I'm going through the day, can I try to extend the benefit of the doubt to people? Can I extend kindness in any way at all, in any context? If I'm ordering a coffee, can I make eye contact with the barista and actually ask how they are, how their day is, and listen and care? I mean, can I do anything, at all as I'm going through the day? If I'm making a phone call because I'm waiting on hold and I finally get, a human being on the phone, can I try, as hard as it can be when you're waiting on hold and listening to that music, can I try to be kind to the person who finally answers? Those are some things, some outward things you can do. Check on your friends who are scared. There are a lot of scared people right now. I have a lot of friends personally who are scared about what they're seeing in the world right now, and scared for their kids, and scared for their kids right here, like in this country, let alone scared, I mean, my one of my closest friends in the world, her son has been living in Israel for the last 4 years. She's scared. There are a lot of people who are scared right now. And I hesitate to even like say any names of anyone anywhere because you just can't do that right now. But I guarantee you there are a lot of scared Palestinians in Gaza right now. There are scared people everywhere. And if you get into a situation where you cannot express your immense sadness about all of that because people are going to scream at you, then just take action offline. Take action offline. Text people, call people, check in on your people, ask them what you can do. Let them know that you're thinking of them. Those are some things you can do that are outward. And then inwardly, start to really think about, am I at war within myself? Am I intolerant about certain things? What makes me recoil if I see it in someone else? Is there something in myself that I'm recognizing that I reject? Like, what's happening in here? Am I really militant with myself? And a lot of people, it's very interesting. Well, it's not surprising because our culture is what it is, but that comes up for a lot of people in the relationship they're having with their own body. Are you like speaking to your own body in a way that is full of contempt? Just to really think about what is happening in this inner world and how can you try to create more peace and more love and patience and acceptance and kindness today. I know in my heart, like I know, when I see what's happening, like I'm getting on social media. I have this, like I said, this yoga and wellness website that I've had since 2009, and I have the personal essays that I'm writing, and there are certain things that I need to do online to reach people and to support the community that I have. I have a beautiful global community online, and I'm not going to leave them now. That's not happening. So I do have to sign on, but I don't have to read everything or watch everything. Like, I am managing my own nervous system because some of the videos and some of the, it's just, I don't think we're made to sustain this level of constant devastation. And, I know there are people living it. I'm very aware of that. In order to be helpful in any way, you cannot get yourself into a place where you just don't even want to get out of bed. You will not be able to help anyone. If the situations were reversed and you had people on the other side of the world who could maybe somehow help you by, I don't know, calling their own government representatives and expressing their absolute horror at what they're seeing that's better than having people on the other side of the world who can't even get out of bed in the morning because they're so devastated by what's happening to you and they feel totally powerless to help in any way. That's not going to help anybody. So you've got to manage what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're seeing, what you're taking in. And, those are steps that you can be taking here, again, offline. You don't need to tell everyone what you're doing about everything. You can call your representatives, and express your whatever your feelings are on any side of the situation. You can take some action. You can think about, you can get a lot more engaged in voting, on the local level and, the wider level. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do if your heart is breaking and you want the world to be a different kind of place. You can volunteer. There's a lot of ways that you as an individual person can help. And I encourage you to really pursue those, because by my way of thinking, the more people we have trying to help, that's the idea. The more people we have screaming at each other on the internet, like for who? For what? Um, I do think that it's like a lot of what is going on here is we're kind of missing the memo. We've got our eye on the wrong ball and we're playing the game that we shouldn't be playing. And, what am I talking about? I mean, all the structures that have been set up, these platforms that I'm talking about in social media, they can be used for good, for connection, for conversation. But there's also a lot of advertising going on there. And, it's bigger business to keep people enraged and upset and scared and fighting with each other than it is to spread some peace or spread some hope or spread, like that's the reality. And so if you find that you're playing into that, like really just try to step back and take a pause, and breathe and come back to center and understand, like, I don't have to get sucked in to that vortex that isn't going to help anyone except people making money off of me clicking. Like, I don't have to, I don't have to participate in that. I can actually step back and take my own actions that make sense to me. And there are a lot of people who feel vehemently about a lot of things right now. So my feeling is do something. If you are feeling so strongly about something, if you are so impassioned about something that you are screaming at people on the internet, take all that impassioned energy and go do something productive with it. Go see how you can help. Like, that's a better outlet for your intense feelings than screaming at someone who has a totally different way of, looking at the situation. That is really what I think. And to think carefully when you do express yourself, whether you're talking about, speaking to your own self, your own inner voice, or speaking to the people in your life, to think about the words that you're using. I know in this regard, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know it because I know the people in this community already are thinking along those lines. I know if you are interested in reading what I have to say or showing up for this kind of conversation, you're already on that page of how can I help and being mindful. And, I just know in my heart you're not screaming at people on the internet. But to continue to figure out what other ways can I create more peace inside myself and more love inside myself, and what ways can I take some meaningful action outwardly, and and have some faith that those two things will matter. And I shared some of the more horrible things that spring to mind, because I am writing this memoir. Like, I am going back and unearthing some ancient history, and some of it is really painful. And if you want to, for me, my hope is that by sharing these stories, I'm helping, that there might be someone reading something who is struggling with that same thing I struggled with for so long, and finally, broke through and broke free, and just to be able to write about, like, this is what changed things for me. This is how I started looking at things differently. This is how I started feeling differently about myself. This is kind of like how I made that shift. Maybe this will help you in some way. Or, someone who might feel really alone in their experience, just to know, oh no, I'm not. Someone else has gone through something similar. Maybe not exactly the same thing, but this feeling of being unlovable and broken. I think a lot of people have gone through that experience. So my hope when I go and unearth my own history and write about it, it is really hard sometimes. I was avoiding writing about my mother's death, like those final hours. I just couldn't, I was scared to write about that. But I did it. I did it about a week ago. And of course I was in tears, because it's still fresh, and because I think I'll always be in tears when I think about it. It was really brutal. ALS is an absolutely dreadful disease. And so anyway, again, I don't want to go off on a tangent there, but words, the ability to express our feelings in words is, it's such a powerful way to connect and to reach a hand out in the dark and say, like, hey, I've been there. Maybe you're going to relate to this and feel less alone. That's my hope. In that, like, for that reason, it's totally worth it to me to go back and put myself back in those moments so I can write about them with, a lot of time has gone by for most of the things that I'm writing about. And so I have a different perspective on it now than I did then, right? I'm a grown woman now. I'm not a little kid who's like totally overwhelmed by what's happening. But in general, other than working through the things that have happened to you and maybe created self-doubt or made you feel like you're broken in some essential way or unlovable, like, I do think you got to go back and work through that, and understand, unravel that and rewire that at some point. And probably good to do that with a therapist, a good therapist. Just like any other profession, you really want to be careful about who you are entrusting the most important thing, in the world with. Like, you want to be careful about who you're handing your heart to, essentially, and who you're trusting to help you heal and try to like move through some things. But I do think that when you're talking about those deep childhood wounds, it's really, you're gonna have to revisit some stuff and to understand yourself, svadhyaya, self-study, to really know what's driving me and what's stopping me and what's scaring me. But short of that, right? Like, once you've done that work and you've really understood yourself and you know why you have certain fears or certain tendencies or certain insecurities or certain beliefs about yourself, like, once you've gone back and you've figured that out, hopefully it's like, the monster under the bed. Once you just like stick your head under the bed and look and realize, oh, it's just like a pile of books or something, it takes the power away from it to a profound degree. And having some help just processing, like, okay, I started believing these things about myself then, and I know now they're not true, and like I can mourn for the childhood I didn't have, or that young, really confused version of myself who thought things that weren't true. But I also want to like take the reins here. Like, I'm a grown person now, and I'm making the decisions, and I'm deciding what environment I'm going to be in or not, to not then, once you've done that work, whatever you feed is going to grow and strengthen. You don't want to keep feeding your heartbreaks, your hurts, your rage, your disappointment. You don't want to keep feeding that. You want to be feeding the thoughts and feelings and ideas that are going to be productive and help you feel joyful, feel at ease in your own skin, feel some inner peace so that you can spread that. It's not about, it's like one of those things in life, and there aren't too many of them, but this is a total win-win. If you do this work on yourself to create a more loving inner environment, it is going to have an incredibly positive impact on the world around you. And you're not going to be a person who's participating in screaming matches on the internet. You're just not, because you're going to have the ability to recognize that's not a good use of my time or energy, and that's not going to help anyone, and so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do some other things. We just need a collective, I don't know, we just need like a collective giant deep breath, a world cry. We just all need to stop and let ourselves cry. And we need a reset right now. And, since I don't know how to create a world reset, just whomever I can reach, like, maybe we just do the best that we can to reset, and to regroup here and to remember that we're in this together. And and that words matter. And the reason I shared some of those things that had been said to me over the years, and some of them were just like, I did not share everything. And it's not that I had so many awful relationships. I just had, I'm going to say I had two really just two painful relationships with people who lashed out regularly and really broke my heart, And so I can share some of those stories and some of those things. And I went there just to, illustrate how lasting this stuff is and how impactful words can be. And so hopefully, the message there that came through is just for everyone to really think about, to think about that and to be mindful about language, not just the things coming out of your mouth, but the things that you're writing or texting, to really take a pause. And if you're feeling extremely activated, it's probably not the best time to use your words. I don't know if you ever heard that phrase, use your words, but like when my kids were little and they would be trying to express something, sometimes kids get overwhelmed with their big feelings, and hello, not just kids, and I would say, okay, all right, like, first of all, just like, I'm with you. I get down on their level. I make sure we were eye to eye. I can see that you're really upset. It's okay. I'm here. I'm listening. I want to know what's happening. Why don't you just tell me what you're feeling in your body? What's happening? Like, just talk to me. Tell me what's going on. And that idea of using your words, with someone in a safe space who's going to, it's the job when you have small children is to kind of be their nervous system. They cannot self-regulate, but it really looks to me like a lot of grown-ups can't self-regulate either, and so one of the ways that you can do that is what I just described. If you're feeling really like a lot of energy in your body and a lot of feeling, especially like rage or despair, is to try to figure out, okay, now's not a good time for me to start talking or yelling or texting or emailing or going on social media or, this isn't the moment. Let me instead see if I can feel where I'm feeling this in my body right now. It'll ground you. So if you can kind of just check in and see, okay, how is this rage manifesting in me right now? Is my heart racing? Is it shallow breathing that I'm experiencing, like chest breathing? Can I feel, sometimes you can feel, we have all these words to describe emotion, butterflies in your stomach, right? It's a sensation that describes like nervousness, excitement, fear, like maybe if you're about to do some public speaking or something, or you're going on a first date with someone you really think is cute, like that butterflies in your stomach feeling, we all know what that means. Well, those are words that are describing a sensation. So every emotion that you have is a sensation in your body somewhere. Hot-blooded, right? Like hot-headed, that feeling of your blood pressure rising, like that's a feeling. We have words for that. My blood was boiling, or I guess there's so many of them, but feeling like you were punched in the gut, like a gut punch, or the hairs on the back of your neck standing up, like all of these things we understand instantly as human beings because we know the sensation. Well, that sensation is it's a feeling, it's an emotion. So to try to figure out, where am I feeling this feeling right now in my body? And, let me just sit here with it for a second. Let me make a long spine. Let me just feel where I'm feeling that in my body right now. And noticing that you're breathing, that's just a really good way to ground yourself, feeling the soles of your feet on the floor. If you are feeling overwhelmed, just finding something in the room that is one color and focusing on it, focus on this green rug right now, just to bring yourself back, just to ground yourself and breathe. And honestly, I know, because I've been teaching yoga for so long, it's second nature, but 4-7-8 breathing, breathe in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8, repeat, repeat, repeat. You can do that for 5 minutes. It's like 60 out breaths. That longer out breath will calm your nervous system. I'm just sharing these things. I don't normally talk about this stuff in these talks each week, but I'm sharing these things because like a lot of people need a little nervous system intervention right now, and then you can decide what to do with all the feelings. Just calm your nervous system first, get back in your body, ground yourself, and then decide what you want to do with the feelings and try to pick something productive. Thank you so much for joining me for this talk. I really do hope it has been helpful. I know it's rough right now. If you have been feeling despair, I've been feeling a lot of that, more of that really in the last few weeks than I can remember. My heart is just like hurting, for the state of the world and the state. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's hard to do anything right now. It's hard to do our days right now because of everything that's going on and the absolute lack of reasonable, compassionate communication or conversation. It's rough. And so you're not alone if you're struggling, but here hopefully are some like practical, powerful things that you can do personally to calm yourself and to take some meaningful action about things that you care about, and to trust that, the more you cultivate love inside yourself, the more of that you're going to spread, and that it does matter and it does make a difference. And if you're someone who expresses yourself through art, just to like allow these feelings to come through you in a way that's hopefully also going to be helpful. So I thank you. I thank you for joining me, and I'm easy to find, and I will see you soon.